Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a great honor to be here with you. In the heart of sport, in the heart of football, thank you for being here. A big thank you to UEFA Foundation for Children for the great collaboration and the hospitality, and to all the partners. And of course, thanks to Clarence for making us the honor to be here and share his vision with us. And we're glad to see that in many aspects we are aligned. In line with what Clarence mentioned, the focus of my talk will be on the positive angle, meaning what is the value of football in shaping a better world. And I'm really glad to have heard that we should direct our message towards this angle. So how can we use sports to shape a better world? A few words about who we are and what we do, only one slide. Why we do what we do? Because we believe education is a powerful source, a powerful force for change. We really believe that. And we envision a just and sustainable world where people will learn and flourish. That's our vision, and it's in full alignment with what we do. At the same time, we know education alone is not enough. We need structural changes. We need systemic approaches. And it's very important to focus on the positive. Focusing on the positive does not mean we ignore the negative. And there is racism. Racism is a reality. But focusing on the positive gives us hope. It gives us a source to look forward to. We work a lot with schools, and a lot with many stakeholders in many initiatives, with a big focus on values. The value of sport, respect, friendship, solidarity, collaboration, resilience. All these are fundamental qualities of what we do, what we should focus on. And character education is one of the focus of this project. It's not just about tackling racism, because you cannot tackle anything without character. The focus of this project was to work with grassroots football coaches, youth clubs. We need to raise awareness. For many people, we know that we have the big challenge of discrimination, but we have to focus on inclusion. We have to focus on building capacity for longer term and sustainability. Urs mentioned earlier all the partners, so I'm not going to go again and focus on. All the resources developed for this project are available online. But we focus on grassroots for the very simple reason that's where it's happening. That's where we need to start. And grassroots is where participation and the love for the game are the driving forces. The key words here are participation, as in inclusion, equal opportunities for all, and the love for the game. Okay, that's why it's important. A beautiful quote about football that I really wanted to bring on board, because it really gives a good essence of why we're doing what we're doing, is that the thing about football, and the important thing about football, is that it is not just about football, you know? It's about broader values. It's about the broader value of sport, it's about participation, friendship, collaboration, respect. It's so much more. At the same time, we cannot ignore the problem. We should focus on the positive, but at the same time, we need to be aware and really aware that there is a problem. Okay. This brings the philosophy and approach behind this initiative that we were fortunate to have co-designed with our partners and implemented for the last 30 months. Its focus is on the possibilities that football gives to unite, to bring people together. During our planning phases, we did a lot of research, and it's something that we've been working on for the last 20 years. And the idea is that we know there is a challenge out there we need to address. There are a lot of incidences, a lot of things going on, but we also know that the majority of the initiatives that get visibility target that small percentage of elite football. What Clarence mentioned when we work with youth, that on less than 1% will make it to elite football. But the problem exists in amateur and in small and grassroots football, which is often either ignored or very underreported. There is not a lot of evidence for that, but we know it's real. So there is even more reason to focus on grassroots football. Building capacity of coaches, football managers, youth workers working with youth clubs and sports clubs, it's so important. We know from research that as in education, that teachers teach the way they are taught and they emulate the behaviors of their teachers. The same applies in sports. Youth athletes, they are impacted heavily by their managers, by their coaches. And that's why it's an important focus of the project. We've tried to bring together a collection of expertise, and in the consortium that we worked with, we had really complementary expertise, including universities with capacity and academic training, UEFA Foundation for Children and the Fair Network, that they do so much work in the field, and of course NGOs that do this work and work day to day in the grassroots football and youth clubs. At the same time, a lot of these, we wanted to develop resources that would be available for free for a very long time in many languages, and hopefully this will have a wider impact. The four main results from this project include a report on the challenges and the approaches and what's actually happening in the partner countries. We develop education resources and training for coaches, managers, youth workers, and teachers who work in schools that they focus on sports and grassroots football. But a lot of these resources are not just for football. It's for sports, the value of sports. And we did develop a toolkit with practical tips along with an e-learning platform. To do the research, we worked in all countries. We conducted desk research, took a look at policies, initiatives that are implemented. We conducted interviews, in-depth interviews, to see what is happening and what is the perception of the key stakeholders regarding possible solutions. One of the strengths of the project is the co-design approach, a user-centered approach, that we brought together all key stakeholders, which at the same time is one of the key lessons of this project, the importance of working with everybody with a positive message. We held focus groups and conducted the research, and then the key findings from the transnational report is that there is a big gap of knowledge and understanding of what racism is, what is inclusion, how can we promote inclusion, what are the practical steps we need to take for that, and what are all the factors that influence this. And it's systemic. It's not one thing. At the same time, we know that the behavior of coaches, educators, trainers have a strong impact on athletes youth and the young children long term. And we also know from a lot of research that the behavior of the manager and the trainer and the educator impacts for life young people and their perceptions about sports, about values, about solidarity, about collaboration, about teamwork. These are very important. At the same time, we know that the expression of racism takes different forms and shapes. And not everybody understands how that is perpetuated. On the one hand, we definitely need to focus on the way we envision where we want to go and why we want what we want and why it's important. At the same time, we also know some of these things are basic human rights. There isn't much to negotiate. It's a basic human right, you know? But we need to tackle it. Also, there are incidents on a regular basis, but since grassroots football is not well researched, we know that things are happening and we are ignoring them. So focusing on this was an important aspect. And the last key point that came from our focus group work and discussions is that we need more systemic and more engagement of authorities, ministries, associations to actually push forward the key message for the value of sports, the value of football, and the importance to focus on character development and character education. You know, during the pandemic, there is a lot of research that shows that depression and mental health in youth skyrocketed. It's a huge problem with huge consequences that we rarely discuss. And the key challenge there is that I often get questions because we work a lot with parents associations in small rural areas. And when I go and discuss and they ask me, okay, what is it that you want your son to do? And I tell them, if you ask me one thing I want them to learn and develop is resilience. How do we develop that within the broader value of sport with respect, friendship, and so on? The focus of the resources, in the next 5 minutes, I will give you an overview of the resources because I would like to leave time for discussion, and so we're fine. The first part of the curriculum focuses on racism in football. What is it? How is it manifested? Because oftentimes we ignore this. We take a lot of things for granted. You know, a very famous anthropologist, they used to say, fish will be the last creature to discover water, you know, because it lives and breathes in water, and we take a lot of the things for granted. But the challenges that are there, oftentimes we're not spotting them easily. Conceptualizing racism, the role of coaches. What is their role? How can they work collectively with the community and not in a solo performance, but how do we work with everybody involved to achieve the vision we have where we want to go? And of course, a key element is the resilience and the character we need to help youth develop. It's of course a big challenge what Clarence mentioned, that we have a lot of coaches that they only use the transition from amateur and youth sports and grassroots for their next step in their career. There is nothing wrong to have a vision for your career, of course. At the same time, we should not compromise the value of sport just with that. So it's an important element in the curriculum. In the toolkit, we have a lot of resources, including lesson plans and actual activities. Have in mind that a lot of the implementations we did, and also in Cyprus, we worked a lot with schools. And work with teachers who it's very useful for them to have a structured lesson plan. Here is the objective. Here is how I'm going to start. Here is the next step. What this is the activity I will do. Then how do I do the debriefing? What am I addressing? What are the issues we need to highlight? All these practical tips are needed. And of course, case studies and a lot of supplementary material. All these resources are free in the platform of the project, which registration and account creation is free. And the resources are available in 4 languages. And now we're looking for some supplementary funding to ensure that we can add more languages down the road. I'll take an example, one of the modules on how to make a football team a space of inclusion. You know the focus, a space of inclusion, because that's the focus. And then we want them to be able to list the key causes of exclusion, because if you cannot tackle exclusion, it's difficult just to focus on inclusion, because exclusion and discrimination are realities. So we need to be aware of that. And how to recognize and document it and then apply specific methods to actually promote the inclusion aspect. And of course, understand the importance of monitoring and supporting, and when incidents arise, to tackle them. We cannot just push them under the carpet because it's a reality. In many cases, we participated in the pilot implementations with discussions with youth. You know, for example, causes of exclusion. What are some barriers? You know, of course, there are many more, but this is a classification of 4 the main categories. You have the financial aspect. I remember when we were kids, we used to play in the fields, you know, and we used to scrub so to make sure the field will be a bit even so we can play. The attitudinal ones, the physical, and of course, the organizational and systemic aspects. And then to start conversations with youth, because it's not just about the coaches, managers, trainers. It's about everybody who plays the sport. And how do we sit down and have honest conversations? You know, we need a lot of empathy. We need to be able to sit and listen and appreciate each other's perspective. We don't have to agree. It's impossible to agree on everything. But the basic human rights are there. Those we don't negotiate. So following, there are case studies within the activities implemented and how they can overcome some of these, how they are manifested, and what we all can do to redefine some of these aspects. Now, let's take a quick look at some of the impact and the lessons we learned from this project. It's a small project implemented in 5-6 countries, but at the same time, we really believe in the both short-term but long-term impact of this project. We trained more than 100 coaches so far, piloted it with hundreds of youth and students in many clubs and associations and schools in 5 countries. And of course, we had a lot of discussions of how to recognize and minimize the incidents that prevent for true inclusion to take place. Here you see some of the implementations, and then we also have several that were actually in the fields. And a lot of promotion and dissemination, and I think the event today with the live streaming and participation on all of you, and thanks again, Clarence, for your support of this, I think will be good to actually voice the importance of these initiatives. So more than 50,000 individuals have been reached so far through the various dissemination activities and engagement with the project. And at the same time, we are working with schools and ministries to find ways that a lot of this can actually be adopted for the long term. Closing, I would like to focus on some of the key lessons we learned and the importance of initiatives like this. Probably the first one is the strong need for intervention that focus at grassroots, because that's where it's happening. That's where it's for the participation and the love of sport are the driving forces. And that's where the scale and the masses are. And we need to start from that. Systemic approaches. Systemic, it means education and training is just one pillar. We have a lot of factors involved in promoting inclusion and shaping a better world. We have the policy level. We have the constant monitoring and evaluation. If we don't monitor our work, we will not know the impact of our work. We need to bring together key stakeholders, and there are many. It's not only associations, it's not only the sports trainers, managers, coaches, it's parents associations, probably a much more important stakeholder, because a lot starts with the family. We often hear debates about schools. Yes, schools are important, teachers are important, but children are at school 6 out of the 24 hours. Where are the remaining time? Either family, friends, clubs. So we all have a role. We all have a shared responsibility. And at the same time, this is not to ignore the value of education, character education, and how you develop that. We did large-scale implementations for inclusion in other initiatives we were involved, a key policy experiment that we did in 100 schools in Europe, and we did measures before and after to see if specific interventions focusing on the positive behavior support can have an impact. And it does. It has an impact. Instead of focusing on the negative, you focus and reward the positive, and you highlight that. And there were improvements in school climate, reduction of violence and incidents and behavioral problems in schools. We know it works, but it's hard work, It's not easy. And we know the world is a messy place, but at the same time, I think that we all can do little by little. We can have our contribution and hopefully help shape a better world. Closing, just another initiative we're currently implementing and coordinating this, building in a lot of the focus of inclusion as a key element, and particularly focusing on inclusion, diversity, and integrity. Thank you so much for your time, and I will look forward to the conversations later. Thanks a lot.